Welcome to a series of videos about the work of Johannes Vermeer. These videos are based on new research that I have conducted over the past year, and the series consists of two parts. In the first part we conduct a little experiment. Willem Goeree published a book on drawing in 1668, in which chapters 10 to 17 contain his explanations of what an aspiring draftsman should know. 1668 was also the time when Vermeer was creating some of his most famous paintings, such as The Art of Painting, The Astronomer, and The Girl with the Pearl Earring. Now, let's imagine that these writings by Goeree were actually Vermeer's artistic program, that they reflect the ideas behind the paintings. Is this idea nonsensical, or could it be a perfect match? That's what I wonder. In this series I present my research and show you how similar the visual concepts of both are by comparing the texts by Goeree with Vermeer's work. In a methodical manner we go through the complete translations of chapter 10 to 17, and in doing so we gain a fundamental understanding of Vermeer's painting vision and the changes that happened in his style around 1668. The second part of the series uses the graphic work of 17th century French graphics artist Claude Mellan, an artist Willem Goeree admired. Along with Goeree's texts, these will function as a decoder for Vermeer's work to better analyze his artistic intentions. The aim is to understand Vermeer's method of working. This video will further serve as an introduction to what is to come, and in the next video I will begin with the actual presentation of what I have researched. It is now February 2023 and the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam is hosting a wonderful and historic Vermeer exhibition. Throughout this series I plan to make regular observations of Vermeer's work on location at the museum, as most of the paintings of Vermeer are displayed here, a truly unique opportunity. There is a suspicion that this laughing musician, in his youthful work, The Procuress, is a self-portrait of him. He was born in 1632 and died at a young age in 1675. Whether it is actually him, it's not certain. I sometimes think that the serious-looking gentleman in the music lesson is a self-portrait of him. Johannes Vermeer was an artist and art dealer who lived his whole life near or on the market in Delft. Vermeer left behind approximately 40 to 50 paintings, of which 35 are known today. His work is characterized by the stillness it exudes and the unique style, which has led to various theories about the possible use of technical aids. In recent times, The Girl with the Pearl Earring has become one of Vermeer's most popular works. It is a study in light and form that creates a universal impression by omitting details. Vermeer's work is highly valued and widely admired for its unique qualities, including the way light is captured, the use of color, the atmosphere it creates, the composition, and the paint handling. The research I conducted was focused on the books written during Vermeer's lifetime by Willem Goeree. Willem Goeree was a bookseller, publisher and writer who lived in Middelburg and later Amsterdam. He wrote books about art theory and later about biblical history. His books on art theory covered painting, learning to draw, painting in watercolor, architecture and anatomy. These books were part of a larger plan which he did not fully execute. Willem Goeree was 3 years younger than Vermeer. He lived in Middelburg, which was the second most important trading and port city in the Dutch Republic after Amsterdam in the 17th century. This might have contributed to him having an international perspective on certain matters. Willem Goeree is not a prominent figure in 17th century art literature. If you study books from that time period about art, you are more likely to come across works by Samuel van Hoogstraten, who was a student of Rembrandt, and Gerard de Laresse. Much of what Goeree writes is not very interesting compared to the other books. His book about painting disappointed me. He borrows quite a lot from others. However, there is an important exception in my opinion. In 1668, his book Inleidingen tot de algemene tekenkunst was published, which means Introduction to the General Art of Drawing. This book consists of 17 chapters and an encore in the 1668 version. Later, Goeree revised the book several times and changed the structure somewhat, but I basically based myself on the 1668 version. One of the features of this book, according to Goeree himself, is that he tells what it's all about without beating around the bush. He doesn't try to write it too beautifully. Perhaps that is why it is a snapshot of sorts of what was happening at the time, which might resonate with what a contemporary painter did in the same time period. Initially, Goeree talks in this book about an approach regarding learning how to draw, a somewhat academic approach. As a drawing teacher, you could use this book to shape the learning process of your students. This is not uninteresting, but it is not what I am concerned with in my research. Since drawing and painting are in many ways similar, what he says about drawing also applies to painting. That these two media are similar, that's his own opinion as well. In chapters 10 to 17, Willem Goeree aims to explain the most important aspects for a draftsman to know. He discusses the perception of forms, light and dark, the concept of houding, which was a significant idea in the then current art of drawing and painting, and he covers other subjects related to drawing. Initially, this appears to be quite standard and general, offering a basic explanation for beginner artists on important aspects of drawing. However, and this is important, in his books he barely mentions any Dutch artists. Instead, he mentions individuals such as Nicolas Poussin, Simon Vouet, and the Italian Renaissance artist Raphael, for example. He also cites a letter in his book about painting, written by Jan de Bisschop and addressed to Constantijn Huygens, that highlights France as the most significant art center of that time. It can be said that Willem Goeree had an international perspective as an art theorist. Therefore, his explanation of the things a painter should know is influenced by this international orientation. The book was first published in 1668 and captures the art considerations deemed important in specific art circles at that time. (1668) was the year in which Johannes Vermeer worked on The Astronomer, The Art of Painting, and I also suspect The Girl with the Pearl Earring, although that is usually dated slightly earlier. In an earlier period, Vermeer worked in a somewhat grainy style. Think of paintings like The Milkmaid. Now he is evolving towards a smoother, more schematic way of working. At this point in his development, Goeree's texts can help us gain important insights into Vermeer's artistic evolution. Here we see, for example, how the effect of the nose line that we do not see, yet do not miss, is explained by Willem Goeree. At A, the nose line is drawn in, and at B, it is not. He says that the soul, so to speak, completes the drawing. Now, this is a clear example due to the drawing, but there are many things in which Goeree's texts correspond to what Vermeer does. If we compare Vermeer's work with his Dutch contemporaries such as Pieter de Hoog, Gabriel Metsu and the early deceased Karel Fabritius, there are similarities. However, there are also stylistic elements in his work that make it very strange and unique in comparison. The comparisons with the camera obscura are attractive, but ultimately unsatisfying in explaining this well. These strange features, if I may say so, get more context if we study Willem Goeree's texts, and in turn, the special work of the French graphic artist Claude Mellan. More about this last artist later. But what I want to say is, I think Vermeer, like Willem Goeree, had an international perspective. He looked to France for inspiration. As I said at the beginning of the video, to gain insights into Vermeer's lost theory, a sort of experiment was conducted. The texts written by Willem Goeree, chapters 10 to 17 from his book on drawing, which were written during Vermeer's active time as an artist, were considered to form Vermeer's artistic program. The experiment aimed to determine the extent to which these texts align with Vermeer's work, and what insights could be gained by studying all of these texts as a complete unit. I have here the portrait of Willem Goeree and the man in Vermeer's music lesson, which I suspect could be a self-portrait. Even if it's not a literal self-portrait, it is closer in terms of mood and state of mind to the paintings he created than the always depicted laughing musician. Although that's a wonderful image of Vermeer to have, if it is him. These video series present the outcomes of my research. What we will discover in the upcoming videos is to what extent Willem Goeree and Johannes Vermeer are kindred spirits. Could the texts in Willem Goeree's book on drawing be a hidden treasure trove of information that might allow us to delve deeper into the core of Vermeer artistry? In the first part of the video series, we will read through the complete text of chapters 10 to 17. One chapter per video, and I will provide explanations and examples. Here we see the topics covered in each chapter. In this first series of videos, we lay the foundation. We work through chapter by chapter. We learn to think as much as possible like a 17th century master in 1668 who had his eye on French and Italian influences. A master like Johannes Vermeer. In the second part of the series, we will utilize the work of Claude Mellan in conjunction with Goeree's texts as a means of interpreting Vermeer's artwork. We will build upon the foundational knowledge gained in the earlier sections and delve deeper into the heart of Vermeer's artistic style. This exercise will bring us closer to understanding the elusive artistic philosophy of Johannes Vermeer and his thought process behind the paintings. One of his most famous works is this Head of Christ, drawn with a single continuous line that through local thickening displays an image like a screen. This work, his depiction of the moon from 1636, is often compared to a photograph. This is something it has in common with Vermeer's work. Here we see the page where Claude Mellan is mentioned by Willem Goeree in the 1705 edition of his book on drawing. Earlier, Goeree had already based the frontispiece of his book on Mellan's work. Mellan's original work, you can see it on the left. But Goeree did not mention him in the early editions of the book. It was only in a revised version for the 1705 edition that he finally named him. Mellan's work has several unique characteristics. He avoids outlines from a certain point on and does not allow hatchings to cross each other, which gives his work distinctive effects. Now, Vermeer and Mellan do not do exactly the same, but the similarities are so significant. The study of Mellan's work can tell us a lot about what Vermeer does. The second part of this video series will be about Mellan, Vermeer, and also the text of Willem Goeree. The next video, the first of the actual series about Vermeer and Goeree, will be about chapter 10 of Willem Goeree's drawing book, in which he discusses primary forms and subordinate forms. See you then.